Mike's MMA Picks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show, brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMAOddsbreaker. We are here for UFC Orlando. 14 fights. Fights kick off at 7 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast. Should be a phenomenal fight card. Lots of opportunities. Only 3 events left in December in 2022. Let's get things kicked off in the 115-pound division, where we have Estela Nunes coming in as a plus 250 underdog here. She's fallen on some hard times against Sam Hughes and others, taking on Jasmine Jauregui. Now, Jauregui, 320 minus 325 at the betting window. Someone who looked solid in a stand-up affair where she had Lucindo charging at her like a matador at times, like a bull versus a matador. Jasmine, typically a counter striker, somebody who's going to need an opponent to tango with her. Jasmine is a fighter who only 23 years of age. Last fight, she was in front of a packed house. Fought a Lucindo who, let's be honest, 20 years of age, someone who was underdeveloped, someone who was coming into their own. In this specific matchup, Nunes, you look at the Instagram, you look at the team that she's training out of American Top Team. They are a force to be reckoned with over there. I think this is going to play out much closer than the line indicates. Jasmine, I lean towards Jauregui at minus 325. I'm not going to be touching that fight, but she will be the pick. Next up, we have Francis the Fire Marshal taking on Marshall-Rojo. Marshall-Rojo will not have James Krause in his corner. Marshall-Rojo, a fighter in his mid-30s, somebody who is going to bring the fight to his opponent. I've noticed a lot of folks are expecting Marshall to ground Rojo, try to play it safe here. Marshall is a fighter who offensively, I like what I've seen from him, but defensively, from a striking standpoint, leaves his head up, could potentially get poached on the way in. Disturbed by Marshall-Rojo, the sequence of events that have played out that are happening, unfolding right now. You have to wonder where Rojo's head is at. As a seasoned veteran, somebody who's back is against the wall here. Francis has the wrestling, has the youth, but Rojo has the experience and is a veteran. This is Rojo's last stand as far as I'm concerned. I have concerns about Marshall's lack of head movement here, and also is he going to get coached up for this one from a defensive point of view? He's got to play this safe. And 3 rounds in front of a packed house, it could be his coming out party. I'm going to lean with the crafty veteran who, well, let's be honest, he's not so crafty. He's a wild man. And I don't think this fight is going to go the distance. Here's the challenge here. If Marshall is able to ground Rojo, is he going to try to just grind him out and prolong this fight? And Rojo, we know that he's gassed out many times. What has Krause worked into his game? And is that going to deter him from what he's trying to do out there? Good questions. Good questions. Give me Rojo in this spot. Not much conviction. Feel like there are much better spots on this card. Next up, we have Natan Levy coming as a minus 200 betting favorite against Levy-Valdez. Valdez, we saw Matt Frivola do a little bit of a number on him out there. Valdez is a wild man, similar to Rojo in a lot of respects, in that he will throw the kitchen sink at his opponent and empty his tank. Now, Levy, the much more, much more composed fighter in this matchup. Somebody who has the ground game to cause Valdez problems. Levy is somebody who, I'll be honest, I've watched the previous fights, and midway through the second round and third round of his previous fights, he looks like he's beginning to gas out. So I think one of these fighters is going to end up gassing out rather quickly, because this is going to be an action fight from the get-go. I know Levy is probably going to try to slow this fight down and use his grappling, but that's going to come at a cost here. And Levy, I think he's going to end up getting this done. I think he'll get this done inside the distance. I don't see this fight going the distance. I believe minus 275-ish is the fight doesn't go the distance prop, like the under 2.5 here. And you got to wonder, how is this fight going to end up going the distance? There's only so many calories one may burn in such a limited amount of time. The gas tanks are going to be tested, and I think Levy's going to end up getting his hand raised. But Valdez is a wild man out there, could pose some issues. Oh man, I love this bout up next. But before we get to that, let's say good morning to everybody out there. Good morning, JP. Good morning, JP. Yeah, the Krause situation is very concerning. Still unfolding. See how that plays out. Hopefully there isn't a global effect in regards to the fallout there. Rojo has been subbed many, many times. All right, let's get into this featherweight matchup where we have Darren Elkins taking on Jonathan Pearce. JSP minus 500 here. Now, you watch Jonathan Pearce's previous matchups, and he's put himself in some precarious situations. You watch a number of his fights. Makwan Amirkhani had him in some tough spots. Omar Morales had him in some tough spots. Even Rodriguez had him in some tough spots. So you know what? I watched some interviews with Jonathan Pearce. I heard what he's saying into this fight. He knows he has to fight a perfect fight, cannot make mistakes. Elkins could capitalize on that. And Elkins is a tough guy to put away unless you're a competent striker. And Pearce isn't known for his striking. We've seen he almost had his arm ripped off against Joe Lozon in his UFC debut up at lightweight. This spot, I do think this is the phasing out of Darren Elkins here, although he did sign a new contract. So who would be next for Elkins if Pearce ends up ragdolling him here? And I think that is a real possibility over the first round and a half to 2 rounds. Look for Jonathan Pearce to really put it on Elkins. The equilibrium might be off. His he's very unathletic and survived on instinct. And we know he can grapple. He can wrestle. I was at his fight against Dennis Bermudez where he scored an upset there. And that was, granted, 5-6 plus years ago, but the wheels are starting to fall off for Elkins. The Connolly fight, we backed Elkins in that spot. And I think this is just, you've got the younger fighter, the fighter who has a phenomenal gas tank, the person who's not necessarily going to tap. We saw, oh my gosh, that arm was put in a really tough spot, and he would not go, Jonathan Pearce. So do I think Elkins could potentially put Pearce in some very rough spots? Yes. Do I think this fight is going to go the distance? Possibly. I don't think it is, though. The under 2.5, not necessarily going out after that. I think that if you're looking at props, look at Jonathan-Pearce round 3. Take a peek at that. I think that may be a playable number. And Pearce inside the distance is something that I've been eyeing. So give me Jonathan-Pearce to win this bout. Morning, Donnie. Great to see you here. Next up, we've got Mark Diakiese taking on Michael Johnson. Diakiese now sitting at minus 330. He was in the low minus 200s for a long time. So props to folks who ended up getting in there. This is another case we can highlight the importance of keeping an eye on where these lines are, and the longer they sit out there, the more time they have to move. So if they are opened at multiple books, take a look around and don't wait too long on it, because as you can see, a minus 230-ish fighter is now up to minus 330. As we go up and down this card, you'll notice that a bunch of these lines have ballooned out to a point where some of them are unplayable. Mark Diakiese here, though, we've seen him add new wrinkles to his game just about every time out. Alva's loss was an issue. Michael Johnson, I want to if you watch back the tape, look at the way Michael Johnson moves. His knees appear to be an issue. He has difficulty getting around, but he still has those straight punches that are they are legit, and they could catch just about anybody. Diakiese is a solid striker, though. He's somebody who incorporates a kicking game into his arsenal as well, where we have Michael Johnson, who primarily relies on his hands. Also, Michael Johnson can be put in some very tough spots on the mat. Concerning to see Clay Guida have some massive success against Michael Johnson on the feet. I think this is Diakiese's fight to lose, and he should come out here and perform, and also has a path to victory in the grappling realm as well. Larger octagon. Michael Johnson has spent a lot of time in Florida through the years, working on his craft. In this spot, Diakiese is going to be the pick. I think this fight could potentially end inside the distance the longer it goes. Also, Diakiese, it's a question of how does he pick his point of attack here. Does he want to play it safe and wrestle, or does he want to scrap it out on the feet? So I think he has a clearer path to victory on the mat, but that could potentially come at a expense in regards to the gas tank. So give me Diakiese. He could potentially win either inside the distance or via decision, but I'll be picking Diakiese to win. Next up, some grizzled vets here. Former hockey player and Guida-Holtzman taking on Clay Guida, who I believe, let's see, this is Clay Guida's 60th professional fight. You heard that correctly. 60th professional fight. He's somebody who's been at this forever, and he has really stayed the same throughout the course of his entirety of his career. Somebody who's going to come out and move and get in, get out, try to wrestle at times, and be unpredictable. That's how he's been successful. Guida-Holtzman, a couple of years away from the cage after some brutal losses. Guida-Holtzman is a fighter who I've really enjoyed watching back his win over Alan Patrick. I think that was the high point of his career. Now I think the age is starting to catch up to him. Can be robotic in nature. Has trouble tracking down opponents when they are moving across the octagon. Somebody who is fairly well-rounded, though can get taxed out there. Watch the Nick Lentz fight back. There have been others. The Emmett fight. I think there was a stand-up. I forget who the referee was who had a premature stand-up that caused some issues in that spot. But Clay Guida, I think he's live here. I'm not going to be playing him. I'm not going to be playing anybody in this specific bout. I think Holtzman is live to land a knockout blow, though. And as far as DraftKings goes, keep an eye on Holtzman potentially performing well here. It's how many miles does Clay Guida have left? And what has Scott Holtzman been up to the past few years? Those are my questions, because he did take some time off after being brutally knocked out. I'll be picking Holtzman to win, though, in that spot. Next up, Angela Hill taking on Emily Ducote. Ducote coming in as a minus 130 betting favorite. I was at Ducote's fight last time out against Jessica Penne, and I've noticed Angela Hill in Jessica Penne's corner. Had a good eye on what was going on. Hill, the Lupita Godinez fight, my gosh, you talk about a fighter who was unable to take the clearest path to victory. Concerning to say the least. You put your hard-earned money and invest in the decision-making process of these fighters, and sometimes they do not follow the game plan. And Godinez had a path to victory to take out Angela Hill, was unable to do so through the wrestling. Ducote's primarily a striker. We saw her chew up the lead leg of Jessica Penne. Angela Hill, she's better at navigating around the octagon, going to have a larger octagon to work with here. Ducote, I believe she's the better striker here, especially when it comes to the kicking game. And I believe she has a path to victory. I don't like this price tag, though. Angela Hill, we know she's a grizzled veteran. We saw what she did last time out against Jessica Penne, or Angela Hill against Godinez. Now, in this spot, though, larger octagon, Angela Hill's getting up there in age. I believe she's around 37 or so years of age. Somebody who is going to be in this fight. I think this fight has split decision written all over it. And, man, I'll be picking Ducote, but I am going to be staying away from this bout from a betting perspective. Thank you for everybody who's subscribed to the channel here. We have been at this for quite some time, and we're coming off of a card where we went 11-0 as far as picks go last time out. And throughout the course of the 5+ years of tracking our plays, been doing very, very well. And let's work our way next to a welterweight matchup between Niko Price and Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe coming in at minus 103, taking on Niko Price. Now, Phil Rowe missed weight by a substantial margin. Cause for concern here. Niko Price minus 125 at the betting window. Somebody who had apparently been fighting for a long time with a blown out knee. Somebody who is tough as nails. Somebody who has a jiu-jitsu background, and he's not quick, and he makes big time mistakes, but somehow has been able to work his way out of those mistakes, those problems. The George Sullivan fight, 2018. My God, believe I was fairly heavy on Niko Price in that matchup, and I was concerned about the decision-making process by Niko Price in that matchup. As from an athletic standpoint, Phil Rowe, much more fleet of foot here, has the better striking, both technically and the way he's able to land straight punches. He's an unusual striker, and we saw almost like a cobra getting after it against Jason Witt. In this spot, I think it's going to come down to the toughness of Niko Price. I think he's going to put in some tough spots. We saw against Vicente Luque. I think he's going to end up coming out the other side of this fight a victor, but it is going to be very, very sketchy numerous times here. Price, I suspect, will have a big crowd advantage. I think he's going to have the crowd behind him, and he made weight. Man, Rowe, it's just a matter of, can he finish Niko Price? because that is an option here. If Rowe starts landing, Price does not move his head well. He's got a massive noggin and can get taken out of there. And I think that potentially could happen here, but I'll be picking Nico Price. I think this is one of those fights where he's just going to get beaten up, and then we'll turn the tide and it will be an unpredictable outcome. I think that we'll be seeing Phil Rowe doing fairly well. And then all of a sudden, bam, Price is going to come back with something and cause Rowe some problems. So give me Nico Price in that matchup, but not a fight that I am heavily invested in. JP says he can't see a finish in the Hill-Ducote matchup, and I agree with him there. I think that the over, that's been juiced though. All right, Eric Anders taking on Kyle Daukaus. Kyle Daukaus coming in as a minus 230 betting favorite. Taking on Eric Anders out of Fight Ready, somebody who is starting to get up there in age. Anders hasn't really evolved at all. One of the easiest fighters to game plan for on the entire UFC roster. He hasn't really evolved. I know he's tried to work in some of the wrestling, but that comes at a cost. I don't think he wants to take this fight to the mat against Kyle Daukaus. Daukaus has a dangerous ground game. Very dangerous ground game. This isn't Phil Hawes here, who is an athletic freak and is going to be a massive threat on the feet. Anders is much slower than Hawes. Hawes is quick for a round and a half or so. And Anders is going to be trying to grind his way, like similar to the Park fight, trying to grind his way to a victory. And Daukaus has, I believe Daukaus has the better striking here. I also believe Daukaus is the much more versatile fighter with the much more dangerous ground game. And I'll be picking Daukaus to win. Think that Anders may be coming to the end of his road here. I know Daukaus has, he's suffered some knockout losses here, especially against Dolidze. We'll talk about that fight later on. We'll talk about Roman Dolidze later on up and down this card. But in this spot, I'll be picking Daukaus, and I'm not very impressed with Eric Anders. You go back to the Thiago Santos fight at 205 pounds. Somebody who will give you a grade A effort is going to try his best, but I don't think it's going to be enough against Daukaus, especially in the larger octagon here. I think that's going to help Daukaus, who's much more fleet of foot. You talk about, look up your definition of a plodding fighter, somebody who's a plodding fighter. Eric Anders should be right there. Next up, Jack Hermansson taking on Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze plus 150 at the betting window. Somebody who has been riding a winning streak now. I believe it's 3 in a row for him. Taking on Jack Hermansson, who is coming off of the Curtis victory. Jack Hermansson was able to get a full camp in here, coming in at minus 190 at the betting window. Now, Hermansson, does he have some sketchy moments out there? Yes, he does. Doesn't seem to handle power punchers well. Especially, you watch the Cannonier fight. There have been other situations where if he gets clipped, he could get hurt and taken out of there. Watch the weigh-ins. I haven't seen somebody that happy to make weight since Devison Figueiredo when he fought Moreno one time. Jack Hermansson here has the better ground game, has the better cardio, is the longer fighter. Dolidze could potentially catch Hermansson with a strike or a kick, but I don't think we'll see Dolidze lock up a submission here. In fact, I believe Hermansson will be the more likely fighter to win via submission. Think that Hermansson's going to walk away with the victory here, though there could be some sketchy moments here, especially on the feet early. I'd like Hermansson to take this fight to the mat and drain the gas tank of Dolidze. And I'll be picking Hermansson to win. Dolidze, though, is dangerous early. We saw against Daukaus, and there have been other fighters that have shown us that Dolidze can come out here and he can crack. And he believes in himself, and the confidence level is a real thing. Hermansson, there were times during the Curtis fight where he was winning and he didn't necessarily look to engage. And he's going to have no choice but to engage against Dolidze at certain points, especially early here. So watch out. But if you did want to hedge in some capacity, you could play Dolidze inside the distance and then Hermansson straight, or Dolidze by knockout and Hermansson straight. But I'll be picking Jack Hermansson to win this fight. Now, you want to talk about volatility. You talk about a heavyweight matchup that we have. Up next. Oh, look at this. DX says that Hermansson's going to end up in the dirt. Interesting. Well, we'll see about that. Next up, we have got Tai Tuivasa taking on Sergey Pavlovich. Pavlovich coming in as a -220 betting favorite. Don't think it makes sense to play Pavlovich at that number, especially considering I doubt this fight goes to a decision at some books. Fight doesn't go the distance is sitting at -1100. Pavlovich is, he's so stiff out there. You compare the fluidity of Tai Tuivasa to the rigidity of Sergey Pavlovich, night and day. Tuivasa, though, was beaten to a pulp by Cyril Gane. Of course, he had his moments in that matchup, and then ended up on the wrong side of a fight. Now, Tuivasa he can crack. I love how when he lunges in, when he commits to his strikes, it's pretty impressive. And he's got big power. And also his killer instinct is amazing for the heavyweights. Now, Pavlovich, he's going to have to try to hurt Tuivasa at range. He cannot mess around inside in the pocket, because that's where Tuivasa excels. I think Tuivasa has the possibility. There's a potential here to catch Pavlovich. I don't have a play on this fight, but if I was to make one, I'm leaning Tuivasa. I think that he gets this done via knockout. I don't see this fight going the distance. And Pavlovich, you watched the fight against Overeem, and the way he was taken out of there, it's hard for me to get those images out of my head. He got run over basically. And I know Tuivasa has against Spivak, that there have been situations where he's been run over, and not a lot of conviction in this pick, but I'm going to be picking Tuivasa to win via knockout. Should be a good spot to play in DraftKings. I'll say that. I think that whoever wins, it will end up via a brutal knockout. So give me Tai Tuivasa there. Next up, flyweights. Love flyweight fights. And we have Matthias Nicolau taking on Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell, he's a fighter who he can put it all together. You want to watch him thread a needle? Watch Matt Schnell take on Tyson Nam for 15 minutes, was able to thread the needle and fought a great 15 minutes. Now, he did get cracked a number of times in that fight. Nicolau, you need two to tango. Against Dvorak, there was a feeling out process that took place there. But once things started to get going, Nicolau was able to show that he's a very intelligent fighter. I mean, it wasn't very intelligent when he got popped for steroids prior to his bout against Dustin Ortiz, and was out of the promotion for a while, and then came back, and now has been doing fairly well, though. Nicolau against Manel Kape, fought a solid fight. The second round, I would like folks to go watch the second round of Matthias Nicolau against Tim Elliott. Nicolau fought a great second round there, and then the cornering of Tim Elliott cost him that third round in the fight against Nicolau. Nicolau in this spot, though, he's going to have to force some exchanges. He's going to have to force the wild man out of Matt Schnell, because Matt Schnell has a significant reach advantage here. He also has solid wrestling and a decent ground game. We saw he was able to have some success against Brandon Royval very briefly, but he's going to have to make this fight a bit of a mess, cause Schnell to overcommit and overreact. And I was at Sue Mudarji's fight against Matt Schnell last time out. I was actually sitting next to some family of Sue Mudarji. They were in tears. It was, oh my gosh, that was one of the best fights I've ever seen live. And I've seen Takanori Gomi against Nick Diaz live. I've been to many other bouts. The Schnell's comeback there was reliant upon him surviving some horrific stand-up exchanges, and the elbows that were landing on Matt Schnell's temple had him wobbled. That fight could have been mercy stopped at least 3 times, but they let Schnell hang in there. And I think this is going to be a situation today where Matt Schnell starts to look good early and then just gets cracked, and we see the wild man come out of him. We've seen it in the Pantoja fights and others. And then Nicolau is gonna take advantage of that. And the question I have also is, the fight doesn't go the distance prop has been hovering around -125-ish. I haven't played it, been contemplating it, but if Schnell wins this fight, he wins it via decision. That's how I see it happening. If Nicolau wins this fight, I see it happening a multitude of ways. He's shown that he can go 15 minutes and win decisions. He's a very intelligent fighter, and Nicolau could potentially also win this fight via knockout, and he could win it via submission. So if you got in on Nicolau when he was playable in the low -200s, that was a while ago. If you're playing it now, I would look at the fight doesn't go the distance. I think that has a little bit of value to it, but I'll be picking Nicolau to win. Next up, Rafael Dos Anjos against Bryan Barberena. Looking forward to hearing the Bloodsport soundtrack emit from the Amway Center soon, very, very soon. Let's see. So in this fight, he's taking on Bryan Barberena at welterweight. Dos Anjos, who's coming off of a knockout loss to Fiziev. Barberena, tough as nails, coming off of a win over Robbie Lawler. Barberena lacks a ground game, though, lacks a get-up game, and Dos Anjos should be on him like glue for a significant stretch of time in this bout. I could see Dos Anjos getting off on some body shots prior to this fight hitting the mat. And Barberena, he's tough as nails. I was at his fight against Sage Northcutt, where he was getting pieced apart. This was way back, I think 2016 or so, long time ago. And Barberena turned the tide there and won that fight as a massive underdog. And this spot, though, he is going to have to, Barberena's path to victory here, what is it? He has a very limited path to victory, but it would be to catch an aging Dos Anjos. That would be it. Dos Anjos has great cardio. We know he comes in and doesn't make many mistakes. And Barberena, he's a tough brawler who hangs in fights. That's really who he is at this stage in his career. And at plus 380, I'm not going to be playing Barberena. I think this line could potentially be even wider than it is. Dos Anjos at minus 555. I'm not touching that either. It's just a matter of, can Dos Anjos lock up a submission here? I could potentially see that see that happening. But as I mentioned previously, Barberena is tough as nails. So give me Dos Anjos. It's just a matter of how does he want to win this fight. We've seen against in other situations, I think it was the was it Maya against Sato, where fighters can they'll just do whatever it takes to survive and get through the fight, and they won't try to win. And Barberena will try to win, though. He will go for it here. So give me Dos Anjos to win, and I'm tempted by a submission prop. Stephen Thompson, Kevin Holland, main event of the evening. Welterweights. Stephen Thompson, one of my all-time favorite fighters. One of my kids, one of my sons, his favorite fighter. Got to hang out with him before. Great guy, great fighter. Granted, he's getting up there in age, taking on Kevin Holland, who Kevin Holland has been a tough fighter to trust. He's going to have fun in there, and that does come at a cost. He can waste time inside of the octagon. Against Jauregui, even he's on the bottom in a tough spot, and he's just yapping away. I wonder, how is Stephen Thompson not going to get caught up in the trash talk here or the friendly banter with Kevin Holland? If you got in on Kevin Holland as an underdog a while ago, props to you. Now this fight, look at this. Kevin Holland minus 180. Thompson, striker, somebody who is going to look to stay evasive in the larger octagon, stay on his toes. Kevin Holland, though, long fighter, somebody who isn't the level of striker of Stephen Thompson. Nope, not many are. Stephen Thompson has been in camp with many times before with Chris Weidman and others. So his takedown defense has held up. But at 39 years of age, I think the writing's on the wall here. Kevin Holland's going to be the pick. And it pains me to say that because I have a lot of respect for Thompson. I kind of wish he would have hung up the gloves before this fight. But this might be a nice send-off for him. I could see him leaving the gloves inside of the octagon here. It would be interesting. I could see him hanging up the gloves, win or loss. It would not surprise me to see Thompson land one of his patented head kicks or a counter strike here, but I'll be picking Kevin Holland, and I think that he is going to win this fight inside the distance. He could end up TKOing Thompson. He could end up locking up a submission also. Remember, we hit Kevin Holland via submission a couple of fights ago against Tim Means. Kevin Holland via submission, I believe it was around plus 1,400 or something like that a few fights ago. You are not going to get that number here against Stephen Thompson. Thompson hasn't, many opponents have not had the opportunity to be put in a situation where they could submit Stephen Thompson. Everybody goes back to that Tyron Woodley fight. How incredible was that to see Stephen Thompson fight his way out of that not tap? Massive respect for Thompson, but I'll be picking Kevin Holland to win here and to win so inside the distance. Want to thank everyone for tuning in on this Saturday morning. I know we got a little bit of a later start than usual, but we have many viewers right now, and I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody for sticking it out here in 2022. This is going to be my 5th consecutive winning year from a third-party track standpoint. The plays can be had at MMAOddsbreaker Premium and tracked at betmma.tips. Appreciate y'all. A couple more fight cards left after this in 2022. Remember to go get what's yours. Have a great Saturday, and All the best. Cheers.